This story happened to my friend on the deep web. I had a pretty scary experience too, but mine was a few years ago. This story happened to my friend just 1 week ago. For those who don't know, the deep web is pretty much the internet that isn't indexed by search engines like Yahoo, Google, Bing, and etc. It can only be accessed by special software, such as Tor. To give you some context, this is the friend that showed me how to get on the deep web. He has always been really fascinated with it, but after my horror story experience with deep web hackers, he pretty much took a long break. He didn't resume using the deep web until about a year after my story, but he didn't tell anyone. He would buy stolen Apple products and drugs, etc. About a week or two ago, he was buying some cocaine. It wasn't from the seller he normally buys from though, but it was really cheap, so he gave the seller his address and a fake email he used so they could stay in contact until the deal was done. He wasn't too worried. This guy seemed professional, and it was the same procedure for most of his purchases. My friend told him to ship it in a movie case, or something that his mom wouldn't expect to have drugs in. This was probably the biggest mistake. He let the man know he was just a teenager, but my friend isn't the most careful of people. A few days later, his mom walks in the house and hands my friend a movie that he had ordered online. He took it and opened it up, but inside, there wasn't any cocaine, just a piece of folded up paper. He opened it up and read, "There has been a problem. Email me for details." At the bottom, the man had left a new email for my friend to contact. My friend got on his email and asked the guy what the problem was. He responded, "Something has happened. If I were to send it to you, it could be traced back to me, and we would both be caught. Meet me at the elementary school at 7. We will just do it in person." The school wasn't too far away, so my friend told my mom he was staying the night at my house, and he headed off to meet the man. He called me and asked if I could be there with him, but I was really busy with my schoolwork, so I said I couldn't. I did tell him to take a knife or something though, just in case things went wrong. When he got to the parking lot outside the school, he heard a car honking its horn. He saw it was a Jeep, but the plate had been covered up by duct tape, and the windows were tinted very dark. The man got out of his car and gave my friend the drugs, and my friend paid him. It seemed like everything went fine. My friend got in his car and sat there a bit in order to call and tell me everything went fine. He noticed when he had hung up, the man was still there though. Why was he waiting? He didn't think too much of it and drove off. When he got to the first red light, he noticed that the man's car was right behind him. He was starting to get a little nervous, but he kept driving. When he reached his neighborhood, the man was still following him, so he decided it would be a bad idea to lead him to his house. He instead turned into the next neighborhood and took a whole bunch of random turns, hoping to lose the man. Eventually, he no longer saw the car, so he pulled the car into his garage and called it a day. That night, he noticed the sound of a car engine. He looked out his window and saw the man's car parked in his driveway. He got wide-eyed and snuck downstairs and peered through the window. Inside the car, the man was smoking a cigarette and talking on the phone, but in the passenger seat, he also saw a second man. The second one was a lot more suspicious looking, even more so than the shady drug dealer man. The second one had messed up hair, a trashy shirt, and while it was hard to see, my friend could almost make out a scar from a massive burn on the side of his neck on his face. He kept watching the two men until the second man began to look at the window more and more often. Eventually he was just staring at the window my friend was watching them from. My friend decided he had had enough and was going to call the cops. He didn't care if he would get in trouble at this point, He moved away from the window and called the police, who told him to grab a weapon or something to defend himself and wait for the police. He had waited for about 5 minutes when he saw a figure quietly come out of his mom's room, who was still sleeping. The man shut the door behind him and noticed my friend had seen him. The figure sprinted towards my friend with what looked like a knife raised in his hand. My friend grabbed a pot from a nearby table and threw it at the figure. It hit him in the face and shattered. The figure screamed and fell to the floor. My friend turned on the lights and saw the second man with a burn rolling on the floor. His face was covered in blood and shards of glass were sticking out. His right eye had tons of blood pouring out. He must have been hit pretty hard. As the man began to slowly get up, my friend grabbed a kitchen knife and drove it into the man's shoulder. Another scream could be heard by the man. The man began to stumble over to the front door when police sirens could be heard. Both men were caught on sight, but my friend's mom had been killed. Her throat had been slit, and she had 23 stab wounds and duct tape covering her mouth. My friend was arrested too for drug possession, and his trial is coming up, but he lost his mom because of it. So I don't think he will be buying drugs from the deep web ever again.
My sister and I have always been close. Even if she is 15 and I am 18, we bond very well. I have no problem with her hanging with my friends. She understands the internet lingo and is quite funny. We both have a love for horror and getting scared to the point where we can't sleep at night. We love deep web stories and they have become pretty popular recently. Our love for it got the best of us, so we decided to check it out. A quick Google search and you could find everything you need to dive right into it. So we got a throwaway laptop from our dad. He works in a warehouse full of vacant laptops, so he gave us one without any suspicion. I wish my dad did at the time. So there we were in my room. Our parents had gone out for dinner and her and I ordered pizza. "Let me do it," my naive little sister Jenny insisted. "You can't, you have greasy fingers." I downloaded Tor and we were ready to roll. The first couple of sites were just some weird satanic cult websites declaring that Obama is the devil. We weren't, I guess, looking to find what you hear some other people find, like sites where you get to see people tortured in the most hideous way. Just curious. The next site was showing us different aliens. We were both cracking up. They were taking cartoon characters and putting them into a weird filter. My girlfriend called, so I left the room for a bit. When I came back, my sister was giggling and having a good time. "What are you doing?" "I found this website where you can talk to a little puppy." She wasn't wrong. There was a golden lab pouncing up and down the screen, barking. You would type something in and it would type something back. "Look, I'll show you." She started to type "What's your name" in the chat box. As soon as she pressed enter, it replied,
"My name is Maxie and I'm a puppy."
The animated dog then started to lick the screen. It was pretty adorable, but I got this weird feeling that something wasn't right. I then pulled at the laptop, then she yanked it back to herself. "No, I want to use it," she protested. That's when the dog barked and it had typed something in the chat box.
"Brian, let your sister have it."
"Did you tell it my name?" I asked. Then she slid the laptop over to me. "No, I don't want to play anymore. This is scaring me." That's when the little puppy transformed into what looked like a guy wearing a Bill Clinton mask.
"Hello there."
He waved his leathery gloved hand at the screen. "Brian, turn it off," Jenny screamed while trying to hit the power button.
"No need to worry, Jenny. We will meet soon."
The stranger grabbed the webcam and started to shake it violently, creating a weird noise. I didn't say a word and slammed the laptop screen shut. There was a 10-second bliss of silence, till a sinister laughter that blasted through the speakers. Jenny started crying and ran out of the room, and I ran out after her. "Jenny, everything's okay." I held on to her shoulders as she slumped down onto the floor. No, it's not," she peeped out in between hiccups. "Jenny, what did you tell it?" She wiped her tears off, then stared up at me with glassy eyes. "My age, there was a joke. I didn't tell it where we lived, but it guessed, okay? I thought, I don't know." I was livid. "Are you fucking kidding me?" I shook her. "You kept talking to it?" She then pushed me off of her and locked herself in her room. I know I'm the one to blame, letting my underage sister browse the deep web with me. I went back into the room and bashed the laptop against my wall. Pieces flew left and right, and finally it was broken. The next day, my mom and girlfriend were going out to a party for my mom's job. No children were allowed. I begged my mom as much as I could to have a babysitter come look after Jenny. I would have asked her to let her go to a friend's house, but she doesn't have any. My dad was away on a business trip, and my girlfriend wouldn't let me miss out on this, so we left her home alone. I told her to lock the door and call the police if anything happened. We went through the whole night without hearing from Jenny. It ended up being a pretty fun night. We dropped my girlfriend off, and when we got home, nothing seemed out of place. We unlocked the front door. My mom called out for Jenny. Except Jenny didn't answer. My heart dropped. It wasn't like her to pull a sick joke like this, so I sprinted up to her room. She wasn't there. I hear my mother scream out. When I got downstairs, there was a note. The note said,
"Dear the family of Jenny, thank you so much for her. We can't express our gratitude to your family. And you, Brian, thank you for introducing us to her."
Next to the letter was $100,000, neatly stacked and folded into a bunch of piles. The police are working on finding my little sister. It's been a week, no leads. I hope this won't be a cold case.
I watch porn. I'm not a pervert who has a catalog of every actress. I don't even have a favorite. I don't have any subscriptions and don't watch every day. I have a few videos on my computer, but who doesn't? I'm in a long-distance relationship with my fiance, 3 hours apart, and we only get to see each other on the weekends. Most of the time, we only get to see each other every other weekend. I'm a guy, and I have testosterone that needs released. So last night, I did the dirty. Just browsed some videos on my phone for a quick fix. I had woken up at 2 in the morning and couldn't get back to sleep, so I figured it would leave me just tired enough to drift off. And this was successful. I didn't download this time, just like I usually don't, while I'm on my phone. So I don't know how the video ended up on my phone, and I definitely don't know where it came from. I've been having some car trouble lately, and recorded a video today to upload to YouTube, so I could post it on a forum and get opinions. I opened up YouTube on my phone, and when I went to the gallery to select my video, it was there. She was looking at me, taunting me. There was something strange about the thumbnail, and I should have just said, "Fuck this," and deleted the file right then and there. It was a picture of some brunette, punk rock chick, staring at the camera. Her eyes were large and glazed over, and she had such a plastic smile on her face. It is one of the most unnerving things that I've seen, and being on the internet most of the time, I've seen it all. This was worse than any beheading, any freak accident, any gory picture that you could find in the depths of the deep web. It chilled me to the bone, and it was all because of that look. I should not have opened the link, but I did. As soon as I tapped on the video, my phone froze. I couldn't go to my home screen. I couldn't hit the back button. The power button wouldn't work. I tried to hold the power button in until the phone reset, but it wouldn't restart. Just as I got the case off and was ready to take the back off of the phone, the video started playing. This wasn't a professional film. This was completely amateur. The girl was sitting on her bed naked. The only things in the frame were her on a bed, in what I assume was her room, and a closed door. Same plastic smile and glazed eyes. For about 10 seconds, nothing changed. She just stared back at me. Just as I was about to try the home button again, her bedroom door opened. A man walked in, wearing a black sack over his head, with 2 eye holes cut out. He sat down next to her on the bed, both facing the camera. That's when shit started getting weird. She knelt down and started to suck him off. It was different than your usual porn. Every video I've seen has been filled with moans and sounds of pleasure from both parties. The only noise in the video was her sucking. The man sat unfazed. About a minute into the video, the girl stopped sucking, and her head turned 180 degrees, so she was staring at the camera with that same soulless look. All of a sudden, the video cut to her and the man on the bed. She was laying down, and he was fucking her. She just stared into the camera with the same face, neither of them making a sound. This went on for 30 seconds before they both got up from their positions. She moved in front of the camera, and he grabbed it from its position it had been in the entirety of the video. The camera focused on her face for about 10 seconds, still haunting me with that same smile. In one swift movement, the man hit the girl in the face with the camera, cracking the lens and busting a few of her teeth out. I'm pretty sure her nose was broke as well, because there was a significant amount of blood pouring from it. Through this, she kept the same smile. Her bloody face and missing teeth didn't seem to faze her. Then she spoke for the first time, not breaking the smile. 5 words that give me the chills as I write this. This is for you, Sean. She knew my name. As she started laughing hysterically, blood ran down her face and the video cut out. My phone crashed. I couldn't turn it back on. I posted this because I need to get this out in the open. I don't know who to tell. I'm going to visit a friend of mine tomorrow who's really good with technology and see if he can get the phone to turn on. I'll try to find out information about the file.
I had never been on the deep web. I thought the whole thing sounded stupid. Some elicited part of the internet with unknown atrocities lurking in every corner. But I was working on my master's thesis, and I thought a paper on internet subculture sounded interesting. I got together with a friend, and he talked to me about Tor, and showed me different precautions I could take to protect my identity and my computer while browsing the deep web. I was ready to explore this bizarre hive I had heard so much about. Needless to say, for about 2 weeks I sifted through old websites that looked like they had been developed during the 90s. Obscure internet relics floating out in the middle of nowhere, derelict websites forgotten by time. Most of it was boring junk, lots of Nazi conspiracy theorists, drug traffickers, and pedophiles. It was what I expected. I would have been content doing a paper on Nazi subcultures on the deep web, or maybe even pedophiles, but I ran across something that really interested me. It was a forum awkwardly titled Enthusiast of Suicide. The name led me to believe the forum wasn't of English-speaking origin. The forum itself had a multinational array of boards for users from different countries. I saw boards in Spanish, French, Turkish, Chinese, a vast array of boards, but there was one common theme. Everyone on the boards was fanatically obsessed with suicide. People in the English-speaking boards would share different ideas about suicide, how to execute it, how to lessen the pain for people who are afraid of suffering, stories about friends who had committed suicide, suicide fetishes, people having philosophical discussions about suicide. It didn't seem to stop. Then one of the boards I noticed some of the people talking about something called The Suicide Show. "It's on tonight, are you going to watch it?" one would say. "No, I can't. I have a big day tomorrow. I plan on going into work with my 38 and killing my boss. Then I'm going to kill myself," the other would respond. I cringed at reading this. The Suicide Show. If it was what it sounded like, then it would be some kind of webcast with a bunch of people committing suicide? I felt my stomach turn and my palms were sweaty, but my mind was racing with curiosity. I had to find out what this show was all about. This suicide cult had already given me enough material for an exciting thesis, but this would be the coup de grace. I find out that the show came on at 1 in my area, and I fished around until I found a link to the show. My throat had a huge knot sitting in it, and I know I must have been sweating. But I couldn't let my nerves get in the way of my research. I was doing important work here. The live feed came on with an eerie-sounding MIDI playing in the background. The film quality was grainy, as if filmed using a cell phone or a cheap camera. A woman with a microphone held tightly in both hands stood with a forced smile on her face. I could see her mascara had run down her face as if she had been crying. She looked like she may be in her 40s. She was Asian, and she looked incredibly uncomfortable and afraid. I gripped the armrest of my chair, my nails digging deep into it. She made me uneasy. The whole thing made me uneasy. But this was getting much more strange. She started speaking in a foreign language, so I quickly clicked a button that would display English subtitles on screen. "Welcome to the Suicide Show. I'll be your host for this evening," she said, her pitch shaky and unnerved. Just the sound of her frightened voice made this so much more surreal and slightly nauseating. "Let's start the show," she shouted with an uneasy and forced smile. She threw an arm up in the air, her teeth clenched tightly into a nervous smile, and a tear rolling down from one eye. This had to be fake. It was weird, but there was no way I was honestly about to be privy to what I thought I was going to witness. They tried hard to convince me that this was some illicit game show from hell, that this woman was being held against her will like Vanna White at gunpoint, but I wasn't biting. There's no way this was really happening. "Our first contestant is from New York. His name is Robert Howard," she read from a cue card nervously, looking up at the camera with wild eyes. She then lowered the card. I could see her hand shaking, and the compulsory toothy smile flash again as she lifted a hand to the air. A spotlight highlighted the area around a man sitting in a chair. He had a shotgun in his hands. I felt my nails digging deeper into my armrest. I clenched my teeth and watched on in horror. He lifted the shotgun to his mouth. I saw tears running from his eyes, and he fired. I could see the inside of his mouth light up for a brief second as a shot rang out. startlingly loud. I jerked in my chair from the sound of the blast. I saw his head jerk back briefly as a discharge of brain and blood hit the wall behind him. His head then lurched forward. His upper body slumped ahead, folding on itself, his head dangling. I could see the top of his head. I could see the blood and the gore, and I could see smoke from where the blast had penetrated. I had seen plenty of horror movies, and I had seen plenty of gore on the internet to know the difference. I placed a hand on my mouth. I felt the air vacate my lungs as I stared on in terror.
"Judges,"
the woman cried out, throwing her arm as the cheap camera swung around to highlight 3 people sitting at a table. They wore black masks with zippers that formed smiles, and white tape that formed X's over their eyes with small punctures in them so they could see the show. One judge held up a 3.8, the other a 4.0, and the last judge held up a 3.5.
"Our next contestant is Carlos Rivera of Los Angeles,"
she said, moving on to the next man. This man stood still, wearing no shirt and a simple pair of jeans. He was holding something in his right hand, and his head was hanging low. He looked like he was focusing, concentrating on something, trying to steel himself. He gritted his teeth, clenching them tightly, his body shaking, and suddenly started to yell furiously as he brought a butcher knife up to his neck and started slicing across his throat. The knife cut coarsely through the skin, ripping through flesh, but he didn't get across his entire throat before he fell to his knees and grabbed his gullet with his hands. I saw blood spurting all over the floor, gushing outward from the open wound. His eyes were lit up with fear as he choked on his own blood.
"Look at him gush,"
the woman cried out, her voice a mixture of false enthusiasm, panic, and something akin to disgust. He collapsed into a pile on the floor, his knees kicking as he struggled to breathe.
"Judges,"
the woman said again, the camera swinging around once more. The judges held up a 4.8, 4.9, and 4.7 respectively. There were 2 other contestants, but I couldn't watch anymore. I closed the feed and walked over to my window. I had to catch my breath. My heart was racing. What had I just seen? I didn't sleep that night. I could see the man who'd slit his throat. I could see his eyes as he struggled to breathe through a throat full of his own blood. I could see his bloody hands clasping at his neck in a combination of instinct and regret. I could see him kicking on the floor, laying sideways in a pool of his own blood. Every time I closed my eyes, it's all I saw. Hey my Nightmare Army, thank you all for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and join the Nightmare Army. I'm always looking for new soldiers in my Nightmare Nation. Hey guys, so like always, I want to give a big thank you to ScaryStuffScaryStuff ding. I should honestly have like a little sound effect ding for that. But thank you so much, man, for being a part of my Collab Tuesday videos. I really love all the content on your channel, man, and I definitely think you guys will too. So go check out his channel, and I guarantee you guys will like it. Especially the titles to his videos too. I really love his titles. The 4 true scary stories that'll make Chewbacca poop his pants. I always love your titles, man. So again, thank you for joining me on my Collab Tuesdays. You're awesome. And I'm not gonna lie, guys, the last story that I narrated really kind of turned my stomach a little bit. It was one of those stories where, I had to at least put a hotline up there for anybody that's, either having suicide thoughts or knows of a friend who's having suicidal thoughts. Suicide is no joke. That's something that I've always taken seriously, just like with domestic abuse or any serious thing like that. So if you guys have anybody that is having suicidal thoughts or know a friend of is, or if you are, I hope not, the number's right up there to call for the hotline, because there are people who still want you on this earth just as much as I do. So guys, as always, thank you all for watching, and just remember, The best ideas always come out of nightmares.